Pop culture wants Vikings to look like misunderstood adventurers with cool hair. But the monastery records tell a much darker story. Monks were dragged from altars, drowned in the sea, and left behind as skulls in churches. This was not fantasy. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicles spoke of heathen men destroying God's church through fierce robbery and slaughter. These horrors make the noble Viking image feel like a marketing campaign. The myth says Vikings were noble warriors with a code of honor. The real pattern looked closer to a horror story. Monasteries were perfect targets. They were wealthy, isolated, and full of unarmed men who had vowed not to fight back. In Ireland, monks built round towers with doors high above the ground. They needed somewhere to scramble when longboats appeared. The raiders not murderers story collapses once you read what happened inside. This was not one bad day at one monastery. The pattern stretched across England, Scotland, and Ireland. So the first horror is the sword. Iona Abbey stood off the west coast of Scotland. In 806, 68 monks were praying there. By morning, every one of them was dead. The massacre became known as the Red Martyrdom. The victims are still remembered as the martyrs of Iona. 19 years later, the raiders returned. Saint Blathmac was celebrating Mass when they burst in. They demanded the hidden shrine of Saint Columba, but he refused. He would not reveal the gold, even if Christ himself had told him. He told them to draw their swords and finish it. They cut him down at the altar. At Crowland Abbey, Abbot Theodore was killed at the high altar, and his skull remained on display for centuries. The second horror is the sea. On June 8, 793, about 100 Viking warriors landed on Holy Island. The monastery at Lindisfarne had no walls. It had no soldiers. It had only monks praying inside. By sunset, those monks were slain, thrown into the sea, or dragged away in chains. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle described God's church on Lindisfarne being destroyed. It blamed heathen men, robbery, and fierce slaughter. That was not a modern writer being dramatic. It was a chronicle entry from the year it happened. Alcuin heard the news and wrote back in fury. He said St. Cuthbert's church was spattered with the blood of priests. He said it was stripped bare and left to pagans who trampled the holy ground. The anger still comes off the page. Lindisfarne was not some random church. It was where St. Cuthbert had been bishop a century before. To Anglo-Saxon England, it was a spiritual heart. The Vikings knew exactly what they were choosing. The attack sent shockwaves through Christian Europe. No one expected heathens to desecrate a place this holy. The raid marked the start of the Viking Age. The monks were the first to learn what that meant. But the part often missed is this. The Vikings did not kill every monk. Some were dragged away as slaves. For a monk, that could be worse than drowning. His monastery was his world, his brothers were his family, and prayer was his purpose. Survival could become spiritual death because the monk he had been was already gone. But the worst fate was not always a quick death. It was not even always being hauled away in chains. The truly horrifying end was staying in Viking hands and dying slowly. The first horror here is the chains. In 824, the abbot of Scaelg Misil was taken prisoner by Vikings. He died of thirst. That is not a quick end. It means days of agony while captors watch and do nothing. There is no sword to end it. There is no escape. There is only time running out, one slow hour at a time. Slavery itself broke something inside them. Monks were stripped of their robes. They were separated from their brothers. They were forced into labor. For men built around prayer and community, this was a living death. They lost more than freedom. They lost their name, their purpose, and the only life they had ever known. A monk dragged off in chains might survive for years. But the man he had been had already died in that monastery. His prayers were silenced, his community was gone, and his name meant nothing to his owners. Sometimes the violence was so total that whole communities vanished. In 928, hundreds took refuge inside Dunmore Cave in County Kilkenny. The annals of the Four Masters claim 1,000 were murdered there. Modern skeletal remains suggest that number might actually be true. The thread is clear. The violence was not only about killing monks. They targeted the holiest and most defenseless people, and desecration went far beyond plunder. The myth sells helmets and ignores the skulls, the letters, and the fresh ink. The next story is even darker.